Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, friends. We are here in Kardec Radio, bringing to you universal truths. My name is Simone Neto. I'm here in Orlando, Florida, beautiful sunny Florida. And the idea of our program is to discuss the Spiritist doctrine principles um, comparing to any religion, philosopher and philosophies, poets and poetry, for us to figure out that what our doctrine says, because it's based in love and the real truths, the universal truths of all religions and philosophies, they all have the same source. It's all the same. So basically, our idea is to prove to ourselves and to prove to you that we have so much more in common. There is so much more that unites us than divides us. And in a world where right now we see so many division, so much I'm right, you are wrong, it's very important for us to start reminding ourselves that the real truth, the real beauty, the real good, um, all the great universal truths that every religion and philosophy that have God and love in their hearts, they're all the same. There are many different doors, but when we open them up, it all guides us and takes us to the same beautiful light. For me, obviously, the Spiritist doctrine is this door. That's the path in this incarnation I chose for me because it does go exactly to what I believe in, to what resonates in my heart. And today we are going to talk about good and evil, a philosophical question that uh, has come to the humankind mind forever, right? We've been thinking about good and evil for all eternity, as long as we can be conscious of the ideas of what we are doing here and why do we need to conduct ourselves. Is there good? Is there evil? And Spiritist doctrine gives us a very easy answer. But before that, I want to start almost like a prayer with a message from this little book, Happy Life. Um, this is written by Divaldo Pereira Franco, by Joana de Angelis, the Spirit, and it has beautiful messages that helps us to connect, helps us to find our way, to open that door and step forward with conviction, with faith, and makes us better. So this message is almost like a prayer. Um, so if you prefer to close your eyes, that's fine, but try to absorb all the words and the wisdom that's contained in this passage. It says like that. Joanna says, there is a sun shining within you. It is the presence of Christ in your heart. Do not let the clouds of a bad mood, rebelliousness, or dissatisfaction obscure its brightness. The light that comes from outside shines, but it casts a shadow when confronted with an obstacle of any kind. Your inner sun never provokes darkness because it illuminates from inside to outside in abundant jets. With love as its fuel, your light will become more and more powerful, shining, blessed in all directions. So let your light shine everywhere. Amen to that. That's our effort, right? To conduct ourselves with the best part of us, to align ourselves with God's light. So let's go back to the question of the program today. What is good and evil? Does evil exist? What does Spiritism say? Let's see. Let's see. We go to the Spirit's book, question 630. How can we distinguish between good and bad? Good question, right? If there is a difference, how can we distinguish? How do we know? Do we know? Good is anything that conforms to the law of God. Bad is anything that departs from it. To do right is to conform to the law of God. To do wrong is to break it. So very simply, what the spirits are saying, the message is, when we align ourselves with the laws of God, then we are doing good. When we depart from it, then we are sinning. We are mistaking. We are erring. We are making mistakes, right? And in question 629, he does then an obvious question. How would you define then the moral law? What are these divine laws? What is this God's law that if I depart from it, I am in darkness? And if I am aligned with it, I am good. So what is this? What do I need to follow? How do I get to it? And the answer is very bright. Obviously, the moral law is the rule for proper action. That is to say, for distinguishing practically between the good and the bad. It is founded on the observance of the law of God. You act rightly when you take the good of everyone as your aim and rule for action. Very important. It's not what is good for you. That would be selfishness, right? If I think only of what is good for me, what pleases me, what is adequate for me right now, me, that's going to depart from the understanding that we are all united and connected to one another. So, it's very important that we go, you act rightly when you take the good of everyone as your aim and rule for action. So when we move forward in life, thinking not only of what is best for us, but what is best for everybody involved in a situation, then yes, we are more targeted to make it right, to get a good solution, because we are not only thinking of ourselves. We are transcending from only me, from my selfishness, from my ego, from my personality, and I am extending my intention in a situation where everybody is a winner, where everybody wins. To the extent that you do so, you obey the law of God. So, in other words, God wants us to be happy. God wants us to have the best, but He wants the best for all our brothers too. He doesn't like me more than He likes you. He likes everybody equally. He loves everybody the same way. So He doesn't want only your team to win. He wants everybody to win. So when we go into a situation in our relationships, if we only think of ourselves and of our little desires and wishes and wants, we are going farther from God's will. God's will is that in every situation, in every relationship, we are able to extend good and beauty and justice and love, 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 God is love, according to the Apostle John, right? So I hope it became very clear what an easy definition Spiritist doctrine brings us. Um, and if we go to the Genesis from Kardec, this is another book from Kardec, Genesis, Miracles and Predictions. And in chapter 3, he has a whole chapter discussing good and evil. It's a phenomenal chapter. It's worth the reading. It's phenomenal. And the little part that I want to bring to you is item 8. It says like that. One could say that evil, bad, is the absence of the good. The same as cold is the absence of heat. So, in other words, he's saying it's like evil is not really a thing, right? Evil is the absence of goodness. So, as much as darkness is not a real thing, it's just hallucination from us. Darkness is the lack of light. So, when you bring light, everything gets clear. Clarity becomes the reality. Love becomes the reality. Co-creation becomes the reality. So evil is just the lack of goodness. So what do we need to do? Go back and align ourselves with the laws of God, just like it's written in the Spirit's book. But like I mentioned to you, the idea of the program is to bring these different authors, different philosophers, different cultures, different backgrounds, and see how the themes of the universal truths keep repeating itself, right? Themselves. So, I brought today to you a poet that you know I love, Khalil Gibran. And when we go to Wikipedia and we ask who was Gibran, we have the following. Let me see if I have it here. There we go. Khalil Gibran Khalil Gibran. Um, he was born January 6, 1883. He died in 1931. He was an American Lebanese author. And he was a poet, a writer, a visual artist, also considered a philosopher, although he rejected that title. And then when we see, which is important for us to see, what was his religion? What was his background and religious views? And it says that he was brought up by his family as a Maronite Christian, but he was an Arab as well. So he was influenced not only by his own religion, but also by Islam, especially by the mysticism of the Sufis. So Sufi is the mysticism of Islam. His knowledge of Lebanon's bloody history with its destructive factional struggles strengthened his beliefs in the fundamental unity of religion, of all religions. So here is an author that wrote The Prophet, a beautiful book I recommend highly for anybody that likes philosophy and likes to dive into this kind of concepts and information. It's a beautiful book. And basically, there is this prophet, and he goes to the city, and people start asking questions for him to talk about it. And there is a part that's a real poem where I'm going to read for you very slowly. It's an archaic English with my accent. You see what's going to happen, right? But we are going to say it very slowly. And one of the elders of the city said, "Prophet, speak to us of good and evil." And he answered, "Of the good in you I can speak, but not of the evil. For what is evil but good tortured by its own hunger and thirst. Verily, when good is hungry, it seeks food, even in dark caves. And when it thirsts, it drinks even of dead waters. You are good when you are one with yourself. Yet when you are not one with yourself, you're not evil. For a divided house is not a den of thieves, it's only a divided house. And the ship without rudder may wander aimlessly among perilous isles, yet sink not to the bottom. So, right there, we have a couple of good comparisons that we can do. When he says, of the good in you I can speak, but not of the evil. Because the evil is an illusion, it's the darkness, right? The only thing that is real is when we put forth on our way towards good, towards light, towards love, towards God. That's when we co create. That's what God is. That's where we align ourselves in everything that's universally sacred. So the evil in us is really just ignorance. So we go back to the Spirit's book. And in the Spirit's book, oops, I got the Genesis. Okay, let's go back here. In the Spirit's book, in question 834, Kardec asks, why does the bed, I use the word here in its ethical sense, exist in the nature of things? Couldn't God have created the human species in more favorable conditions? In other words, why do we have to go through all this, making mistakes, departing from the law of God? Why didn't God just created us good? And that was it. If we had been created perfect, we wouldn't have to be reincarnating all the time. We wouldn't have to be in this journey, right? And everything would be beautiful. Make sense, the question? And look at the answers of the spirits. We have explained that the spirit is created as a simple and ignorant being. So, the Spiritist doctrine teaches us that we are created simple and ignorant. Ignorant of what? Ignorant of the law. We are created simple and without knowledge. We don't have necessarily to learn and necessarily go through evil and bad choices and bad actions, right? But we are just simple and ignorant and without knowledge. That's how God creates us, because He wants us to choose through our free will. He wants us to choose love. He wants us to choose God's way, God's law. He wants it to be our own choice, because then it's our merit. Then our spirit expands. Then we understand what we are here for. So we were all created simple and ignorant, without knowledge. We were created innocent. Innocent. And through our many journeys in the incarnated worlds, when we come to experience what our spirit hungers for, that's when sometimes, many times, we just take little detours from our bright way. And every time we take these detours, we suffer. We need to, through pain, we need to, oops, I need to go back. Because outside love, there is no salvation. There is no freedom. There is no enlightenment. So we need to seek charity within ourselves, these laws of justice, of benevolence, of forgiveness, of all that is good and bright and beautiful. And then we find ourselves. Then that sun shines within us. And that's why Gibran says so beautifully, of the good in you, yes, that I can speak of, but not of the evil, because the evil within us is just ignorance, is just the darkness that hasn't seen yet. It's when we have still the veil of ignorance covering our eyes. And that's why we can speak of it, because it's not really a thing. The real thing is love, is God's loss, is co-creating in this beautiful harmonic creation. And I think that's some for us to think about during this week. That's food for thought. We can meditate a lot of it and come up with our own solutions. And I will give you one question, and that's from the Genesis again, chapter 3, which is a great, phenomenal chapter. Let me see if I find here again. All these books drive me insane. Look what Kardec poses, and I'm posing to you for you to meditate about and think what the answer, where the answer lies. Kardec says in item 9, chapter 3, if evil is the result of the imperfections of human beings, because Kardec is going to argue that God didn't create evil. Evil is created by human beings. Okay, that's the argument of the Spiritist doctrine. God being all powerful, all good, all perfection, why would he create evil? Isn't that an interesting philosophical question? And that's what it's addressed in item 9 of chapter 3. So there we go. If evil is the result of the imperfections of human beings, and human beings were created by God, therefore, then one might say that if God did not create evil, God created the cause of evil. At least that, right? If God had made humans perfect, evil would not exist. What do you say? What do you think? I'm not going to answer to you nor read to you. I will invite you to read the whole chapter of Good and Evil. It's so brilliantly written. It's so enlightening. Kardec is going to talk about all the origins of good and evil in the history of humankind. And he's going to make the argument that evil was not created by God. And if you want the answer for this last question, I have to invite you to go to the book. Yeah, meditate, think about it. It makes a lot of sense. Spiritist doctrine, it's different. It brings these different approaches, different looks, and it's so enlightening. So I invite you to look for the answer. I'm already giving to you where it is. So it's easy, okay? Item 9, chapter 3 of the Genesis book from Kardec, Miracles and Predictions. Okay? All right. So that was our little talk about good and evil for today. Next week, we'll come up with something else. And to end, I would like to go back to Joanna de Angelis and read a little text, just almost like a prayer. So try to drink from it, because her words are so beautiful and makes us feel so ready to conquer ourselves. So let's go. Injuries to the soul are more mortifying. Outer wounds heal easily, while those that swarm within us take longer. Bathe in the waters of confidence in God, of patience, of humility, of forgiveness, and of love. Do not let hate, selfishness, rebellion, or pain mortify the issues of your soul. That's our job. Many illnesses of the body originate in a spirit damaged by emotional conflicts or by the acid of moral imperfections. Look after your internal equipment, keeping it free of stubborn aggression, vices, and irresponsibility. Joanna De Angelis. So it's not where we are evil, it's where we are wounded. And our job here in this lifetime and in the many lifetimes to come is to heal ourselves. And while we heal ourselves, we heal our brothers and sisters. Together we can do this. Together we can heal the world and we can heal ourselves. See you next Wednesday. Have a great evening. Bye bye.